A few gentle words to every Native organization that insists only Natives have the right to tell their stories. Shame on you. Shame on you for staying silent while people disappear without a trace, or turn up dead on highways, dumped like they never mattered. Your silence makes you complicit. Your fear makes you cowards. Your committees and conferences mean nothing to the dead. And get it in your head for once and for all, the claim that only Natives have the right to tell their stories is a divide and conquer tactic invented by the colonizers themselves. They have perfected this weapon in words that much and repeated it to you so many times that you end up believing those words so intensely that you really think it came out of your own mind. It is a filthy weapon, in words one colonial powers have used for centuries to fracture resistance movements from the inside. History is full of examples of solidarity across racial lines that terrified those in power because unified resistance is the one thing they cannot easily crush. The idea that only Indigenous people can speak about Indigenous suffering, only Black people can speak about Black suffering, only the oppressed can name their oppression. This sounds like respect. It sounds like deference. It sounds like listen to marginalized voices, but it's a trap. It's a weapon used against you, because here's what that weapon does: it isolates. If only Natives can tell Native stories, then Natives tell them alone. And alone, they are easier to ignore. Alone, they don't have millions of non-Native readers carrying the story into spaces where it would never otherwise go. It silences allies. The people who would stand with you, who would use their platforms, who would shout when you need more voices. They are told to sit down, be quiet, stay in their lane. And the people in power, they keep talking, they keep writing history, they keep controlling the narrative, while the people who could challenge them have been convinced to stay silent. It fractures. Resistance movements that cross racial lines terrify colonial powers, always have, because when oppressed peoples stand together, Black and Indigenous and brown and poor whites, they become unstoppable. So the colonizers' strategy is simple. Keep them apart. Convince each group that solidarity is appropriation. Convince them that the only safe space is their own. Then crush them one by one. History proves this fact. When Black and Indigenous peoples fought together in the Seminole Wars, the U.S. government couldn't defeat them for decades until they divided them. When the American Indian movement stood with Black Panthers, with Puerto Rican nationalists, with poor whites, the FBI's COINTELPRO worked overtime to fracture those alliances, and they used this exact weapon. They don't speak for you. They're not really one of us. Why are you letting outsiders speak for your people? When labor movements tried to unite workers across race, corporations used the same tactic. Those people are taking your jobs. They don't share your values. Stand with your own kind first. Divide and conquer, oldest play in the colonial playbook. And it hurts me tell it to you, but you fell for it. Spectacularly. Just look around you. Your nations and tribes fall apart, but at the same time colonizers hold together and prosper. While you are thinking about that, let me show you exactly how deep this weapon goes. You have heard this before. All Indigenous peoples are too different. They share too many complex and conflicting ideals, too many different targets. That is why they can never be one. Does that sound familiar? Now look at the map. 50 states in the USA. 50 completely different economies, cultures, legal systems, languages, religious demographics, political ideologies, and geographical realities. Virginia and Hawaii, Texas and Vermont, Louisiana and Montana. Nothing in common except the decision to build power together. And they did it. They called it unity. They called it strength. They put it in every school textbook and called it the greatest democracy ever built. They even printed it in Latin on every dollar bill used to fund the organizations, too frightened to say any of this out loud. E pluribus unum, out of many one. But when Indigenous nations who share the same land, the same generational trauma, the same enemy, the same stolen future, consider standing together, suddenly difference is insurmountable. Suddenly complexity is a barrier. Suddenly unity is impossible. The same mouths that built 50 states into one empire turn around and tell Indigenous peoples that their many can never become one. That is not an observation. That is not a cultural difference. That is not complexity. That is the lie, printed on the money, taught in the schools, repeated until you believed it came from your own mind. The proof of the deception does not require trust or faith or sympathy. It just requires you to look at the map. The truth is this: no one has the right to speak for a people they don't belong to. That's real. But everyone has the right, and sometimes the obligation, to speak about injustice they witness, to speak alongside those who are suffering, to use whatever platform they have to amplify voices that are being silenced. Silence in the face of genocide is not respect. It's complicity. Don't let them use your identity against your people, because when they tell you to stay silent, they're not protecting Indigenous voices. They're protecting themselves from the one thing: they cannot survive a united front. Let me be perfectly honest. I have my own problems. I don't need to be involved in other people's too. My own government wants me dead because I don't agree with their worldview. And I am unsure whether the government I fled to will accept my asylum request or deport me back to the hands I escaped from. But when I read about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls crisis, my heart broke. Because the first question that exploded in my mind was, what would I do if one of those missing and murdered girls were my own daughter? In that moment, it didn't matter what race or ethnicity I have, or anyone else has. Pain knows no barriers. It doesn't negotiate with borders, nationalities, or race. It just tears every person apart from the inside, the same way, in every language, on every continent. This is not about you or me. This is about the fact that pain, no matter what, is the same for everyone.